And welcome everyone to I Love College, presented by College Diabetes Network. We are celebrating 10 big years of College Diabetes Network, starting from Christina's dorm room, now growing into a national organization spanning the entire United States. And we're so happy to have you here. My name is Rob Howe, and I have had type 1 diabetes for almost 16 years. And what's cool about today is that I get to go back and talk to people who were like me, students living at college away from home and just looking for a community of people. And when I was in college, which is crazy to think about because I don't feel that old, but 10 short years ago was my senior year of college. And it's so cool to see that there are people literally on this event who are at my university who are part of a CDN chapter. Since then, I have done some cool stuff. I got to be the first type 1 diabetic member of the Washington Generals, playing basketball against the Harlem Globetrotters. And since 2015, have been the host and the founder of Diabetics Doing Things, a podcast for people with diabetes. So I'm super excited to be here. I am the host with the most insulin on board. That's just how I'm introducing myself from now on. I literally came up with it 5 minutes ago. But what you're going to see tonight are amazing interviews with people who are integral to College Diabetes Network, both from a community standpoint and a chapter standpoint. And we're finishing out the evening with Christina herself and a one-on-one interview with the founder. So I'm super, super excited to have you guys on board with us. No matter what is in your College Diabetes Network mug tonight, make sure that you raise a glass to everybody that you see tonight. And our first guest, I'm very excited to introduce you to someone I've actually met in person, which is super exciting, Steven Santoyo, who is a 2019 graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, where he served as his campus chapter president and the founder of Type Texas, the CDN chapter at UT Austin. So let's go chat with Steven right now. All right, we are keeping the fun going, and the Texas contingent continues to be super popular tonight. I am in Texas, and our next guest, Steven Santoyo, is also in Texas. He's here to talk about how CDN provided a platform to help not only himself, but others. Steven Santoyo, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, Rob. Greetings from Dallas, Texas as well. It's so nice to see you tonight.
It's great to see you, and what a beautiful night in Texas it is. Let's kind of go back in time a little bit. Let's talk about when you were diagnosed with T1D. I know that college is a part of that story, and I'd love to hear about that from you.
Absolutely. I was diagnosed in March of 2011, which is almost my 10-year anniversary. So it's been a wild 10 years full of lots of different technologies and diabetes management tools. But I'm really excited to be here almost at this decade where back 10 years ago, I was so alone in that time. No one in my family had been diagnosed. I was an active baseball player and I really wasn't connected with anyone. So really lucky to have CDN as I grew older into college to really start my own network and connect with others who really understood what was going on.
I really relate to that, man. I think, I graduated college almost 10 years ago, and, thinking back to, and I mentioned it earlier in the program, to when I started college and there was really nobody else around that I was able to get in touch with, no community that I was able to opt into. And I just feel so good that now that's available for people. And, just so cool when you look back and see how far we've come in such a short time, relatively speaking.
Absolutely. I think now is a time in history and just in general where we need connection. We need connection with other people with Zoom and this new normal. It's so important to feel that human connection. And I'm glad CDN helped bridge that for me as a young person at the University of Texas, which is my alma mater here in Texas. I was able to actually
we hook them, right?
We got to hook them. But I was really excited to help found the first ever chapter for the CDN at UT Austin. And during my time as president and co-founder, we were able to grow it to over 50 active members. And it was really special to see that after personally, I've experienced some sadness with type 1. I lost a friend to type 1 complications back when I was a freshman. And I felt so alone. I never went to any diabetes camps. I never really had a network at all, but I think the CDN came at the perfect time for me because it allowed me to to keep the memory of my friend who passed away alive while still finding that peer connection with others.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know that, especially when we talk about loss, that's such a difficult topic to broach. And something that I think that you really, that you said that really resonated with me is connection and the need for connection now. How are you staying connected to the T1D community now that you're no longer in college?
Oh, it's great. I'm a school teacher now in Dallas, so I teach 13 and 14-year-olds in middle school, and they keep me on my toes, and they keep me reminding why I'm doing what I'm doing, not only for people with type 1, but just for young people right now experiencing so much. So I stay connected here in Dallas through different type 1 adult groups and just different people who truly understand what it's like to experience this autoimmune condition during COVID-19 and during so many changing things. So before I graduated from UT Austin, I served as a congressional intern with Congressman Mark Vesey, who is my hometown congressman here in Dallas. And I was so lucky to learn from him and his staff. He serves on the Congressional Diabetes Caucus. So that group of folks that I was able to work with, I still talk to frequently here in Dallas. And it's just so interesting to see how we can be all over the world, all over the nation, but still truly be connected forever through this condition. And I'm thankful. I'm not giving it up anytime soon. So the more people I meet, the better, because that just really, I think, helps us collectively continue, going forward.
100% agree. I mean, that's the reason I'm here, is just meeting a series of the right people within the diabetes world. It's pretty amazing the doors it can open for you. You mentioned you are teaching 13 and 14-year-olds, which means that you have dramatically more patients than I do. Are you open with your students about your diabetes? Do you talk to them about that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think CDN helped bring me out of my shell in that way, to let me know that it may not be everyone's choice to talk about their condition, but it at least made me feel empowered to. It gave me a platform and space. So now everywhere I go, I try to break down that stigma and let people know that it's okay to talk about what makes them different. And at 13 and 14, that's what a lot of young people are wrestling with: their identities, what's forming for them, what they're feeling. And I think it's really important for them to see adults who are proud of who they are and are willing to have vulnerable conversations at any moment. One student in particular knew that I had an insulin pump, and it was beeping just without me even wanting it to one day in class. And with a very limited knowledge of what that beeping meant from our first week of class, she whispered to me during her test, "Mr. Santoyo, please drink some Gatorade." And it was just the sweetest thing, because I was actually very high at that time and I had a really high blood sugar, but just the connecting with the students in that way was perfect, because they're looking out for me just like when we look out for each other.
That's incredible. And I think something that I think about a lot about younger people with diabetes is how difficult it can be to be different, and how difficult it can be to become comfortable with your own identity and your own differences. And there's so many other things and changes going on at those times. And like when someone says something mean to you, it feels like the entire world is falling down. So man, that really resonated with me. And yeah, it's pretty amazing, the capacity of people to care about each other when we kind of put ourselves in somebody else's shoes for just a second. Has T1D diabetes in general influenced your career path at all?
Absolutely. It's introduced me to so many different people who come from so many different backgrounds. I think it's taught me the power of empathy, but also the power of a story. I have met so many people with type 1 from all over the country, thanks to the College Diabetes Network. And I see so many different experiences. And I think it really empowers me to continue working for and advocating for those voices, which I see too often, sometimes not voiced in the public narrative when it comes to policy in this country, or in general, understanding, before we can fix problems, we have to define them. And I think there's a lot of room for folks to continue advocating and continue helping steer the public policy in a direction that's really better for all of us living with type 1. So I think it's definitely helped point me in the direction of where I want to be. And teaching right now is perfect for that, because I get to serve a community that I lived and grew up in. And it's a community that really does have a lot of individuals who live with type 1, but also understand what it's like to live with maybe another pre-existing condition as well.
Well, I'm grateful for your work, and I'm just grateful that you're here also in the Dallas community. What a huge advantage for me, for you to be pouring back into this community. And I'm grateful that you were able to give us your time tonight and perspective. Always a pleasure to spend time with you. So thank you for coming and hanging out with us. And yet another great reason why we love college.
Hey, likewise, Rob. It's a pleasure always. Take care.
Congratulations to the College Diabetes Network on celebrating 10 years of supporting and inspiring those young adults that are living with diabetes.
I want to raise a glass to you on your 10th anniversary.
Cheers. Cheers to many more years.
Cheers to the next 10.
Congratulations and cheers to you.
All right, everyone, we are going to keep the evening moving. I hope that your mugs are full of whatever you want to fill them with. And right now, we're going to talk about resiliency and confidence, two things that you really need when you're living with diabetes, and the power of sharing your story to better connect with others. And my very special guest is Tiana Cook. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. I personally was so stoked when your name came across the list, because for those of you who are listening at home, you may not know this, but Tiana and I actually went to the same university. So super small world here in diabetes. You never know who you're going to meet from other parts of your life. And I also need to call out that Enzo, my co-host, is currently asleep. So for those of you keeping track at home, Enzo is making some different appearances throughout the night. Hopefully he'll be a little bit more engaged later on. What can you do? But Tiana, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm just excited to be here and answer all of your amazing questions that you have for me today. As you mentioned, we went to the same college, woot woot, and I had no idea until not too long ago.
Yeah, it's so funny. I just remember seeing a post of yours on social media from Colorado, and you talking about school, and I was like, oh my gosh, we went to the same school, and our college was not very big. So that's just always a fun thing for me, especially being from Texas, where no one even knows. Like, we went to the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, UCCS. If I say UCCS in Dallas, everybody's like, what, where? Okay. So yeah, no one knows where that is. So it's always, it's very special. I'm so glad that you're here. Let's talk a little bit about your sort of high school, college, young adult experience with diabetes. And what would you tell your past self now, sort of looking back at that time?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed when I was 17 years old, and that was actually 3 months before graduating high school. And at that time, I was looking into going to different colleges. I did want to go out of state. I had been accepted to a few schools, and I was diagnosed, and the doctor was like, yeah, you should probably stay at home just to like adjust everything, get used to it. And I was so bummed, but at the same time, I was like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to make the best out of it. And I actually brought a note. I found this recently. So I was cleaning my room, found this note. This is from like 2 weeks after I was diagnosed. And I'm going to just read a part of it. It says, we're on spring break right now. It's crazy to think this will be my last spring break ever. But it wasn't what I expected it to be either. I was expecting to do hood rat stuff and hopefully go to Cali or something. But everything was shut down when I got diabetes. I said, I'm still trying to get used to everything, but I know it will take a while, and I'm hoping for good to come out of this whole experience. All right, bye.
I love that you signed off your own notes with, all right, bye.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. So I feel like back then I was in a decent mind headspace as I was just diagnosed, but yeah, I mean, what I would tell my past self right now, like before diabetes, I would be like, Tiana, like enjoy life to the fullest and appreciate everything, because life changes so quickly. And yeah, eat whatever you want, do whatever you want before you get diabetes.
Yeah, it's so quick. It's so amazing how like quickly that can turn from like wanting to go have fun on spring break to just, focusing on living a life with a chronic illness that you probably didn't know much about prior to that. something that I know you and I share in common is being involved in the diabetes community online, and meeting people from sort of all over and getting connected to them. What inspired you to get involved online in the diabetes community?
I was immediately after I was diagnosed, I was kind of involved with JDRF in my local chapter, and I just remember feeling so at home, like around people that understood and that got me. And then seeing when I talk to people and seeing like their reaction when they're like, oh, you have diabetes too? So cool. And just being able to relate to people is so fulfilling for me. And so immediately after I was diagnosed, I just knew this is exactly where I wanted to be and the people who I wanted to invest my time in. And so just really being overwhelmed and like a feeling of, I don't know, it's just like being with people that understand you, I guess.
It's so powerful to be part of something, you know,
Right.
and I think that's always such a cool thing. I think when I started to meet more people with diabetes, because when I was in college, I think I encountered my first T1D in the wild at the Chipotle across from UCCS. But that was the first time like I had ever interacted with somebody with diabetes, and now I get to do that all the time, and it's so cool to skip sort of all the explanation and just get into like, you know, getting to understand what each other is going through and having someone that can really listen and understand what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can agree more. And I just think that meeting kids, for me, I'm really big with like kids and giving back and making sure that they have role models to look up to. Because I know as a kid going through diabetes, I can only imagine how hard it is. And so my hope is that when I am helping kids and they see someone that they can look up, reach out to, when they are our age and when they're older, they can return that favor to younger kids who are diagnosed, to like the next generation.
It's kind of like a ripple effect, right? And I kind of am seeing that even
Absolutely.
now, like personally for me, like when I was at UCCS, there was no group, then you were there and there is one now. And like there's sort of this community is growing and changing and evolving. And that's just super exciting to get to see from the other side. So when you're old like me, you'll be able to look back and be like, wow, look how far we've come.
Right.
You share your highs and lows and are very open about your life with diabetes on social media. Do you ever, I mean, spoiler alert for people out there, people say mean things on the internet. I don't know if anybody has heard of that. It's crazy. But do you ever get haters or trolls or people, you know, talking to you negatively about diabetes? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with diabetes is that it's so individual. So even though I see it very optimistically and I have a positive outlook on it, I know that that's not the same for everybody else. And so, you know, there's always going to be people who are at a different phase in their diabetes. And maybe that phase is like, they're angry and they're mad. And when they see other people that are like happy and like celebrating their diabetes, it brings out this like frustration. And I do see that sometimes. And, you know, no one's ever actually directly made a comment towards me, but I have seen like very indirect shade, I guess you can call it. And I don't address it. I just continue being myself. And I know that, you know, I always think if you can impact one person's life with your story, or even that day, if your post made someone smile that day, then you did something, you know, good for somebody. And I don't really pay attention to any of the, I guess, haters.
Definitely.
I'm like, yeah. What are you gonna say? Sorry.
No, I think I really love that comment about sharing your story. You never know, like one little detail from your story could just hit someone the right way on the right day, or be exactly what they needed at the right time, and potentially, you know, change their life. I think like, and no hyperbole behind that at all. It's super, super important. Okay, so fun question. And this one is for me, not necessarily for College Diabetes Network, even though I love college and this is proof. So UCCS question, what is more challenging, living with diabetes or parking on campus at the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs? That's my question. I've got to know, you're on the hot seat now.
Okay, so you can relate to this. I feel like when you were there, it wasn't as bad because I recently graduated, but I would say what is worse is parking on campus. I can't tell you how many times I was in the parking lot for like hours, literally waiting for a parking spot. And then you have to like stalk people to their cars and you're following them and you're following and you're like, all right, you're going to get out. and they just hop in the car and they're just chilling. And I'm like, come on, I'm late for class.
Like people got class to go to. Yeah, absolutely. I remember like we would take one car, my roommates and I, or like whoever, and we would like try to snipe out and like jump out of the car and like run and go like sit in parking spaces to try to get them. So yeah, I relate to that. I agree with you. I'll take diabetes 9 times out of 10 over trying to park on that campus.
So funny. I love that question, and I'm glad we could relate.
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you again, Tiana, for making time for us tonight and for being a part of College Diabetes Network. It has been an awesome time to chat with you, and I just appreciate everything that you do and keep being you and impacting all of us so positively in the community.
Yeah, thank you for having me tonight. It was a great time.
Happy 10th birthday to the College Diabetes Network. I am so grateful that I got to be a part of a CDN chapter during my undergraduate experience. I would not have made it through college without all of my diabesties. And a special thank you to all the past, present, and future CDN staff for supporting all of the chapters across the country.
On to your hats, everyone, because we are traveling for this next interview. We're going to Delaware, to the University of Delaware, to interview our chapter lead, Max Mann, an undergrad student at the university, as well as our faculty advisor, Dr. Jennifer Saylor. Now, I'm also been told that Dr. Saylor is a member of our CRAC team, which is our Clinical Research and Advisory Committee, but I was told to make a crack joke. So that's where I'm at. Where we're at is now going to Delaware, to Dr. Saylor and to Max. Welcome, guys. I'm super excited to have you guys. Thank you for joining us all the way from Delaware. Obviously, this is one of the benefits of sort of all being socially distant in our homes across the nation. We're able to connect with each other. So I'd love to start with Max, and I'd love for you to tell us how you've been connecting with your chapter members, your CDN chapter members at University of Delaware during this time of quarantine and social distancing.
Yeah, definitely. Once the pandemic kind of hit and we were sent home from last semester, we started doing virtual meetings, kind of just talking through what our plan was for the rest of the year. Of course, some plans were on hold, like we wanted to do a few meetings and activities, and so those were put on hold. And as we came back to campus, normally there's a activity where all the freshmen and incoming people will come to see what the clubs are all about. And this year it had to be virtual, of course. So it was the virtual involvement fair. But we had 3 15-minute sessions that we held and got 4 or 5 new members to kind of learn about it and join the email chain. And since then, we've really just been communicating through our Snapchat groups, our group me's. And yeah, so it's really all we can do for now. We can't meet in person, although they are working on like a modified meet in person with a 12-person limit. So kind of just been talking about that, trying to get gear and sweatshirts for the team and just keeping up. And when anybody like ever has a question or needs advice, there's messages always going on in the chat. So that's really what you love to see for what we're working with right now. And then hopefully we can do some more things in person next semester.
Definitely. And I think one of the reasons why you're here with us today is because your chapter has gotten pretty innovative with some of the College Diabetes Week activities recently, especially. I've heard a rumor that there's something involving a drone. So, it seems like you guys have it going on. Tell us a little bit of peek behind the scenes of what you guys have been up to.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I was here for the whole drone thing. So that would have been cool to see in person. But yeah, we kind of just rent out a little space on our main green, just, beautiful part of campus that normally students will be walking by to go to their classes and whatnot. So I actually have a flag right here that we've used before, kind of says Diabetes Awareness Day. We put that in a circle on the green, and kind of which is the symbol for type 1 diabetes. And then we'll also put down posts during College Diabetes Week. I don't know if you'll be able to read all this kind of stuff, but it's just a little bit of information about what we do. And then there's fun facts just about diabetes, kind of just like showing the differences between type 1 and type 2 that people may not know about. So yeah, we put that all around the green. People can just kind of walk by, read it, and take notice. And outside of that, that's probably the main College Diabetes Week activities, but there's always stuff outside of that. Like we when I was new to the organization, we did a type 1 buddies program where we saw a movie with, young kids who maybe were just diagnosed or have been living with it, but it's kind of just to connect and have a role model who's a little bit older. And honestly, it works both ways. Like I learned some new things from my type 1 buddy as well. So awesome activities that, like you said, are innovative and just stuff I never really would have even pictured being like associated with. So it's been awesome.
I love that. I think, I'm also kind of living proof of being able to learn age with diabetes and age on Earth are sometimes disproportionate, and it's amazing what you can learn from someone who's just lived with diabetes a little bit differently than you. Dr. Saylor, I have not forgotten about you there.
I have to tell you, Max is very humble. It is not a flag, it is 500 flags. And there's a lot of processes that go into place at any campus. So Max is being very nice. 500 flags are put out at the crack of dawn. They get up at 5 a.m. and a team of them go out there. And there's also a group of parents at my diabetes camp that every year come by and they all take pictures around that. So that is a nice symbol of unity that our college diabetes network team has put together at the University of Delaware. So I have to tell you, Max and his team and Tyler before him have just they're phenomenal. So yes, thank you, Max.
No, thank you. You helped me out a lot more than you're probably taking care of. So I appreciate it.
The dynamic, humble duo. You love to see that. I think, Dr. Saylor, this is a great opportunity for you to tell us how you got to be involved in being a faculty advisor to your CDN chapter, and what do you enjoy the most about that?
Yeah, so I run a type 1 diabetes camp for children in the summer, and I was visiting a overnight camp, so mine's a day camp. And I found out, I just happened to run into the college diabetes president at the time. So she found out what I was doing, was super excited, and had asked me if I would be interested in kind of taking over for the other faculty advisor. So those of you listening, I know it's tough finding an advisor. I get it. And a lot of times you just kind of start off with somebody who, you kind of know. So you ask that, that faculty to be your advisor. But what I will suggest is to really just keep searching. You can kind of scan the campus that you're in to see if anybody's studying type 1 diabetes. If they're not, maybe they're studying type 2 diabetes and they'd be willing to be your faculty advisor. Because I know that's a hard thing to find. But for me, it's really being involved with the students. The best part about it is every single year it keeps growing. I think it's the little things. Max invited me to the first virtual event that they had. And I don't have type 1 diabetes, but I love everybody that has type 1 diabetes. They're all amazing and just individuals that every day that what they do, that people think I have type 1. So Max invites me to all these calls and they talk about their numbers and their new pumps and their new CGMs and what their numbers were. And, are you looping? And, did you try this cassette? And it's just, I find it just so opening and loving that he invites me to those conversations. And everything they do for the community. They raise a lot of money. They're trying to raise money for CDN this year. And hopefully that is going well. I posted that on all of my social media. So I think it's just seeing them on campus, getting new members, seeing them talk about their numbers and helping each other, with keeping, their daily management alive. So it's just great to see with them.
Well, and I'm glad that you shared that you don't live with type 1 or with diabetes as a faculty advisor, but that you're still very passionate and you still have a big heart for people with diabetes. So you don't always have to start with someone with diabetes when you're looking for a faculty advisor.
No, and I also want to tell everybody out there, and I know Max and I have done this a lot, is part of CDN, you could be an advocate. You don't have to have type 1 or be a parent, but you can sign up and be an advocate and just really advocate. So we also have people that are in our chapter that don't have type 1, so they're great if, somebody's having a low or high and they're at the meeting, they could go get whatever, they need. So yeah, I think that's another really important thing.
Definitely. And I think, again, I want to give you both a big pat on the back for just contributing to community. I know I've mentioned multiple times during this program that when I was in college, there was no CDN chapter. And I just, having seen the positive impact, even from stories that Max shared earlier, would have made a really big difference in my life with diabetes as a, 18 to 22-year-old. So I just want to give you both a round of applause here from Dallas, from somebody who knows the impact that your work is having and just keep it up. And Max, above all, keep growing that mullet, dude. I see that behind your head, bro.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that very much. Definitely some mixed reviews there, but yeah.
I would disagree, Max.
See, there's room for everybody to have an opinion at I Love College Night. So
yes, it is amazing. Yeah. Max is he's great. He's amazing. I donate to College Night. CDN has made a huge difference in, I know, the lives of my students at University of Delaware.
Yeah, I remember the old president kind of just connected us. And I didn't even realize I had like someone who would be helping me along the way. So that was just a pleasant surprise. And yeah, it really has just been fluently like going since then.
Well, if anybody who is watching has questions for you both, we're obviously going to be answering questions live, but we can connect you guys via email or in a post-conference. After we get through with today, we'll make sure to keep those and get you guys in touch with Max and Dr. Saylor. So I did want to thank you guys for your time. Thank you for being such awesome leaders for CDN, and above all for coming to I Love College Night, where we can still neither confirm nor deny whether there's wine in this coffee cup or not.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Rob.
Happy 10th birthday, College Diabetes Network.
One of the important things about College Diabetes Network is connecting with mentors, and the importance of getting connected with people who have been where you are, who know what you're going through, and can help you navigate the complex world of living on your own, going to college, and living with diabetes. So very excited to introduce my next two guests, Dr. Dan DeSalvo and Rafael Trevino, calling in. Rafael is in Chicago right now, but is from the Houston area, and Dr. DeSalvo is also from the Houston area. So guys, first of all, welcome to the I Love College event. I'm not going to comment on whether or not I have wine in this mug or not, but we are having ourselves a good time either way. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about how you guys know each other, and the circumstances under which you guys met are pretty relatable for most of us. So why don't you tell us how you guys got to be friends?
Yeah, absolutely. I can start. So when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes back in 2015 and immediately entered the Texas Children's System. And I actually started my endocrinology care under another CDN board advisor, Dr. Sarah Lyons, and she was really amazing. After about a year or so, I heard about Dr. DeSalvo, especially because he himself is one of the only providers in the clinic that actually has type 1 as well. And I really wanted to get that sort of perspective, just from a provider who also, goes through the same things that I did. And so I switched my care over to Dr. DeSalvo, and the rest is really history. He was really instrumental in me being able to, facilitating my management, especially, those first few years, which can be, really rough for new onset diabetic. And then ever since then, we've collaborated on a bunch of other projects. He was really helpful with me getting my Eagle Award in Boy Scouts through a project that I did for the clinic. And, we continue to stay in contact to this day.
Yeah, so from the moment I met Rafael, he used his platform of living with type 1 to really help others on the same journey. And so, I was really amazed that for his Eagle Scout project, he came to me and said, Dr. Dan, what can I do to help people in your clinic? And so there are a couple of things that he did. One is he raised some funds to help some families in need. Secondly, he created this amazing wall inspirational quote board that now is in the wall of our clinic that we use as a wall of inspiration, where kids living with diabetes can highlight some of the achievements that they're having in life and also with their diabetes. And then finally, he raised some funds to purchase Jerry the Bear, which is this really amazing teaching tool for children with diabetes that's also a source of sort of companionship after they're diagnosed. So again, right from the start, Rafael was extended beyond the walls of the clinic to try to help others along the same journey.
I love that, man. I wish we had more time for this interview, because now I know so much more about Rafael, and I want to learn more about this entire Eagle Scout journey. But Dr. DeSalvo, I'll ask you this second question, and I think it's really important. What motivates you? You're a very busy person. You obviously have clinical responsibilities. You live with diabetes. You have a personal life. You know, taking time out of your schedule to mentor those who are headed to undergrad or to medical school or living with diabetes. What motivates you to do those things?
So I was diagnosed with type 1 during the sophomore year of my college experience. And I found so much support from two sources. A couple of college friends who had type 1. Now, this is before the College Diabetes Network exists. And then secondly, from some mentors who actually worked in the field of diabetes. And so it was so helpful on my journey to reach out to them and learn from them. And I believe that this generation, Raphael and his peers, are going to be the ones that can really move the paradigm in diabetes. So ambitious, so many novel ideas. And for me to be able to interact with them, I'm hopeful that that gives them more of a spark for inspiration. And I can tell you, it provides just as much for me in filling my cup as it does for them.
I totally relate to that. I think just learning about what other people go through from a diabetes perspective and how, like you said, this next generation of people with diabetes really taking ownership of what they do really does. I love the way you said, fill my cup. I totally relate to that. Raphael, your college experience I would classify it in two ways, like before interning with CDN and then now after founding your CDN chapter. How can you talk about the difference in what has changed for you at the college level since getting involved with CDN?
Yeah, for sure. So the difference has been pretty dramatic. I remember entering freshman year of college and not really knowing, what do I want to major in? What do I want to do with my life? How do I want to carry myself the rest of the way through college? And I found very quickly that diabetes was always going to have a unique space in my life. And I knew that I wanted to orient my career in that way. So for that reason, I chose to apply to the CDN internship and I went through that experience and it was an amazing one. I was able to do a lot with, different numbers, with trying to, just try in general to use my power to improve chapter leader handbooks for people to grow their own chapters and things like that. And, for myself, I was able to use that book to start my chapter. And as I mentioned at the beginning, that really has changed the trajectory of my college experience. It's very different for you to function as a diabetic on a campus with, all of your friends are not diabetic and they don't see the same struggles really that you have to go through with counting carbs in the cafeteria, with asking for accommodations on exams, with dealing with having to go to the pharmacy, a couple miles away to get your medicine and things like that. But I was able to find a community of already about 10 diabetics on my campus alone. And, in this time, it's so different now, but in this time we're able to at least connect through Zoom and through our group chat. But on campus, we'd spend half our meeting talking about some opportunities through CDN and their partners, and the other half just literally talking about life and what that was like with diabetes. And it's an experience that every diabetic really should have, and it's the reason I believe in CDN's mission to sort of create those chapters on campuses all over the country, because it's really instrumental.
Yeah, it's like you said, even today where the world is increasingly more virtual, community becomes so much more important. So that's why we're glad everybody's able to join us here virtually tonight. Dr. DeSalvo, how can young adults like Raphael, like even myself when I was of college age, I cannot comment on my age now because that's illegal, about finding a mentor in their desired field?
Yeah, look no further than the CDN Next Gen Leadership Program. Such an impactful way for you as a young adult or a college student living with diabetes to meet somebody in the field who's also living with diabetes and is working in the diabetes space. So each year, CDN selects a handful of young adult leaders. You get to represent CDN at national conferences. You get to be paired with a mentor who you can learn from and build a relationship with. And you get to learn about the latest research and innovation in diabetes technology. It's an amazing program. I've actually been one of the CDN Next Gen mentors and leaders for the last few years. And like I said before, I feel like I get as much value out of it as do the mentees. And the applications are opening soon in January 2021. So be on the lookout for that. And certainly an opportunity you want to take advantage of.
And we'll definitely include that in our post-conference emails. We'll send out the links so that anybody's interested in Next Gen, they can apply for those opportunities. Raphael, last question. You talked a little bit already about the difference in school today versus maybe even as recently as 6 months or a year ago. You attended a virtual conference with CDN this summer. What was that like? Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was honestly probably one of the highlights of my summer. As somebody who's, as I mentioned earlier, personally vested in diabetes and diabetes research and wanting that to continuously be a part of my life, the ADA conference is really instrumental for me to sort of keep up to date with what the current research techniques are, where the field is sort of driving to. And that means a lot of different things. You know, the diabetes research just like spans all the way from studying the aging of beta cells to studying molecules that increase beta cell production to increase insulin production and things like that. And so it was really amazing. I learned so much about, my own management. As a diabetic, you go throughout your daily life, and not only do you look to your mentors and your endocrinologists for how to manage your diabetes, but there's a bit amount of trial and error, just personally, trying to figure out what are the right bolus rates and basal rates and things like that. And actually, it's interesting. One pattern that I noticed was my blood sugar was starting to go up after eating protein and no carbs. And it turns out that that's actually a pretty common phenomenon now. At some point in diabetes management for some people, you need to start taking into account your protein instead of just carbs. And that's something that me, having only been diagnosed for 5 years or so, which is a long time in retrospect, but still isn't that long. I'm still always learning, and the Next Gen program and things like that are still really important for people like myself to keep learning and keep our management steady.
Totally agree. And I think getting connected to the community and being able to go to conferences, both in person and virtually over the last few years, personally, has opened my eyes to things like you were talking about bolusing for protein and just being aware of how so many different people live with diabetes all across the world. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you again for your time joining us tonight. Dr. Dan DeSalvo and Raphael Trevino, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for being a part of College Diabetes Network.
Thank you. And Raphael, I just want to tell you how proud I am of you. And thanks for being such a great diabetes ambassador.
Yeah, thanks so much for the interview, Dan. And sorry, Rob. And Dan, yeah, you've been really instrumental in in just like my journey through this world, and you'll continue to be, I'm sure, throughout the rest of my career. It was great talking to you guys.
Take care, guys.
All right.
Happy birthday, CDN. This is Erin Byrne from the Corporate Sustainability and Social Impact team at Novo Nordisk. I just want to jump on and say a very big happy birthday to you. We have been so excited to support you over the past decade in all that you do, and are in absolute awe of the amount of success that you have had. To see the amount of campuses and chapters that you've grown, and the amount of programs and resources that you're providing to all of those in college with diabetes is just such an accomplishment. We are so excited for you, and happy birthday. We look forward to celebrating the next decade with you.
Happy 10th birthday, CDN. Thank you for everything that you've done for me, my peers, and my family. It's been incredible and a humbling experience to see how many people CDN has reached over the past 4 years while I was serving as a leader for Rochester's chapter. Thank you for providing me with the opportunity to be an intern in the summer of 2017 at CDN headquarters in Boston, the leadership retreat, and then the Friends for Life conference last summer, which set me up with a PA mentor and really continued to support and encourage my medical aspirations. So I'll be attending PA school in June, and I'm eternally grateful for everything that CDN has given me, the networking, the opportunities, and just the passionate people that I've been able to be surrounded by. So thank you so much, and happy birthday.
Hey everybody, you're gonna have to start a drum roll at home because it's time for the signature interview of the evening. 10 years ago, Christina Roth was imagining an event like this taking place where she gets to be the headline of this amazing I Love College event when she was starting College Diabetes Network in her dorm room. 10 years later, that dream has manifested into reality. Right now, I'd love to welcome the CEO and founder of College Diabetes Network, Christina Roth. All right, we're continuing the I Love College speaker series with the speaker of the evening, the woman of the hour, the CEO and founder of College Diabetes Network, Christina Roth. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm excited. I love college, and this is something that's going to continue to come up over this conversation. And I've already mentioned it a bunch of times tonight, but thank you, A, for having me here and for taking the time to celebrate 10 years of College Diabetes Network with us this evening. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for running the program.
Of course, I love to be the host with the most. So thank you for just giving me the flexibility and freedom to make this a super fun evening. Let's, reflecting on 10 years, I think when you're young and you are a young founder, and when you think of a decade, if you had asked yourself, thinking about 10 years ago, where do you see yourself? Where do you see College Diabetes Network in 10 years? Would you have even been in the ballpark of the right answer if somebody had asked you that?
No, not at all.
And thinking back to those days of just being a young adult, fresh out of college, looking for community, knowing and having this mission and vision in your heart that you wanted to bring to life, to see where we are today with all these people here tonight, enjoying each other's company, celebrating 10 years. What memories does that bring up for you?
Oh my gosh. Really, I mean, so much of it just started out the same way, probably so many people watching tonight, their experience, where it was just isolating, and I just was living with diabetes and didn't really want to deal with it, but had to, and didn't know how other people did it. And it was just connecting for the first time. And so there was nothing bigger or beyond that. That was part of the vision early on. And so thinking about it now, and of course we built the organization over time, but so much of it was just what it means to each individual person and what talking to somebody else does for you. What we've been able to accomplish as a national organization, building on that, I never could have dreamt of the role that this organization is able to have today.
I think it's so interesting to see that the core connection principle, the thing that drove the first chapter to now chapters across the country, across the nation, is still in place. That connection, that community, that need for somebody to just understand what you're going through in a new area, in a new place, away from your family a lot of times, where you can be open and find community. What's it like for you to know and see all the chapters that are here with us tonight, and see how far reaching this has become?
It's overwhelming. It really, it means so much. CDN is and was always supposed to be the young adults that make up its chapters, that are its leaders. And what I've been lucky enough to do over the last 10 years is to make sure that there will always be a platform in place for generations of young adults to come. But to see the impact that so many of the people watching tonight have been able to have in their local communities, I mean, I can't take credit for that. I'm just in awe of them. And it makes me so incredibly happy to hear all of these stories and to get all these birthday wishes and really see how far those ripples have spread.
And I think it is cool. We're celebrating a birthday here today. And so you talked about seeing the happy birthday CDN videos. And I want to know, when you hear about the impact that individuals who have been involved with chapters over the years are sharing that CDN has given to them and added to their lives, what are some of the ones that come to mind about the impact on someone's life that the organization has been able to have?
Oh, wow. Hard questions. Some of them are it's just seeing how alone people were before, or seeing that it made the difference in helping them feel connected or knowing that they weren't the only one anymore. It's so hard to think of one specific story because it just is that fundamental shift that regardless of what the context is, I don't know how to even describe it.
Well, and I think it comes back to that focus on connection and the importance of, when you're able to see yourself in somebody else. And I think we all here today, at some point in our lives with diabetes, have felt isolated, have felt alone, have felt like we're sort of carrying the burden all on our own, which is the case when you live with a chronic illness. There's no end in sight. And a lot of times that can be extremely overwhelming. And just having someone that you have access to be able to share even just a little story of like what happened to you during that day, or asking about, tips and tricks and hacks and, whether it's sharing supplies or like what pharmacy to go to when you move to a new town, or, how to get around on campus without your blood sugar going low. I feel like those types of stories that we've heard here today from the other guests as well have, really reinforced just what a gap there was to fill in the community, especially for young people with diabetes. And this is even 10 years ago. It's hard, now we're making ourselves sound old, because 10 years ago, like if you had an Instagram, you were like futuristic. This was this was way back. I know all of you young kids who are, millions of views on TikTok every day. You don't know how hard it was back in there's only 4 filters on Instagram days. Like we lived that. That was the beginning. And, just finding that community and connection was a little bit more analog and more difficult back then. When you started to see, and I know, in the early days, obviously you and your initial chapter, your founding chapter, were getting the benefits of College Diabetes Network. How did you decide to level it up and take it to say, I'm going to make this a real thing that can be started up at different places, that we don't have to be everywhere. We can scale this in a way to become a real organization?
Yeah, I think the realization came in phases. I think first off, it was starting to have other students at other campuses reach out to me just because they Googled college and diabetes and nothing else popped up except this horrible UMass Amherst webpage. And from there, it was just talking to a few more like that. And then after a year, it was just so clear that this was a need and that people talking and connecting like this was a way to solve it. And unfortunately, running a big program, never mind an organization, is hard, apparently. And so nobody wanted to take this on, regardless of who I talked to at the time. And so scaling it up and leveling it up as an organization was really just a way to legitimize it. I think so many of our young adults have felt that they're almost on their own on their campus. And what they're really part of now is a national organization. And so getting that 501c3 and becoming a nonprofit gave that legitimacy to every group that was involved, and then gave us a platform to really elevate the whole mission. So it definitely came in phases, and it was years before I even considered the word scaling.
And yeah, I think there's that element, especially at the beginnings of things, where you're sort of drinking from a fire hose and you're, kind of patching things up, or like building the plane while you're mid-flight, as they say. When you think of the challenges, especially early on, but over the years in creating this platform that has affected so many people, what comes to mind? Is it, was it the early days, or is it, how to do a 10-year anniversary virtual? What comes to mind?
Well, we weren't anticipating being in the midst of a global pandemic on the national or on the big anniversary. So that part came together pretty quickly, thanks to the team. But what comes to mind? Oh my God, it's not having a budget. So driving hours and hours away to a big conference. It's realizing halfway there that you forgot half the stuff for the table and needing to turn around and then go back. It's submitting your first strategic plan to the board and realizing that needing to provide health insurance to your staff before you turn 26 is going to be a requirement for your strategy, or you can't take this as a job. You know, it's so many of those little logistical building a business pieces that when I thought of starting a nonprofit or growing the organization, that's not what you think of. You know, you think of the heart of it, and you think of your mission and everything you're accomplishing when you go for it. And then what trips you up all along the way and distracts you are all these really boring pieces. So coming back to those boring pieces, but also not the failures, but all of the different things we learned along the way is definitely what stands out.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there's those things that you don't know what you don't know, right? And I think as college students, you learn that a lot. That's sort of like if I had to like put a slogan of my 4 years in college, you don't know what you don't know. And we interviewed Tiana Cook, who she and I went to the same university many years apart, but hearing about the community that's there now compared to when I was there, and just thinking about the future people who will go through that campus and encounter a chapter where there are resources, there are community, there are just friends, there's a place to just hold space and talk. Just thinking about the impact that would have had for me during that part of my life, makes me super excited for the next generation and like for chapters, you know, going forward. And I think, you know, that's something that, you know, when you talk about sustainability, people don't stay in college forever. They like wanted me to move on. I don't know. They kicked me out. They're like, hey, go, you graduated, go on and get on with your life. And I was like, no, wait, I want to stay. You know, every 4 years or so, you know, the whole chapter turns over. And so now, you know, in the grand scheme of things, we're looking at 10 years, multiple changes of the guard. And, you know, when you think about sustainability long-term, how encouraging is it when you see, you know, your Amherst chapter and you say, well, you know, there's no way that 10 years ago you would have known that these people would be here today in 2020. What is that like to just know that they exist and know that they're there, you know, providing those same resources?
There's something amazing about being able to leave a legacy where you are that you know will just continue to help people. But I think the beauty of CDN and the CDN chapters is it's a messy model. You know, it's each individual student that's running these groups, that's talking to each other and seeing what they need as a small community and what they need in that moment. What our chapters need now in COVID is so different than previously. So it's what each group is able to do for each other. And I think that's an exciting opportunity for any student that comes into a leadership position, is that chapter is going to turn into what they make it, and they can make it their own. And so the things that the chapters take on and the work that they do is just so incredible and gets so creative. And I think that's really the beauty of the model. You know, CDN as an organization, we exist to be a platform. We exist to make doing all of this as easy as possible and to make sure that it continues. But CDN as a community, that's a day-to-day thing. That's really each individual watching this. It's what they put into it.
And I think that's one of the, you know, especially when you think of like grassroots groups and, you know, small organizations or even like Facebook groups, I often say like they exist based on the will and the enthusiasm of the admin. And, you know, for, you know, thinking about how far you guys have come, and like you said, providing the resources, providing the platform, providing the connections for these individual chapters. But when you think of the work that your leadership in your individual chapters do for the community on a day-to-day basis, year in, year out, what kind of feeling does that evoke from you as a founder when you're like, you'll hear a story that you never could have imagined possible, that an impact that somebody within your group has on somebody else's life. When you talk about leaving a legacy, like those moments are the ones that stand out to you. And do you have any favorites?
Wow, so many. I think that all the incredible things the leaders do is really what created our whole Next Gen Leadership program, because I'm out there talking to so many people all the time and all these other organizations. And so I'm hearing the incredible work that they're doing on the ground, and I want to brag about it. I want to tell people what they're doing and how incredible it is and the difference that they're having. And anyone I talk to is just so impressed and is so interested in, how do we bring that person into what we're doing now? How can we make sure that they keep wanting to do a career in diabetes? And so that's so much of the fun for me, is trying to not only support our students while they're in college and they're leading these chapters, but to try to provide as many opportunities as possible and open as many doors as possible, so that what they're doing on their campus is just the beginning. And that just starts the whole next phase. I think some of my immediate favorites that come to mind, our University of Georgia chapter has done a tour of their campus every year for freshmen looking at the campus, and they do it with a diabetes perspective. And I've just always loved that. And I think that most recently with COVID, we've just had one chapter leader that just started her chapter and who video recorded her whole first meeting, and so that she could have it be virtual and connect with people. And I think that's just that creativity that is inherent in it.
And it's so cool, like you said, the way that each individual chapter sort of builds their identity based on where they are and who the chapter leadership is, and kind of develops their own personality that is honestly reflected in the membership, right? And I think when you think of those chapters, and you mentioned this already, the future of where, we're 10 years in, where are we headed? What is that path forward? You talked about collaboration and somewhat like inclusion. Like, what is the CDN impact going forward look like? And what's, for our chapter members who are here today, what should they be excited about? What are you and your team? I know you have a whiteboard. It's not in this office, but I know there's a famous whiteboard. Like, what's at the top of that whiteboard? Give us a little bit of a peek as to what you guys are seeing.
Well, I think first and foremost, so much of what's happening in society today is hard for all of us to see. And I think especially for our members, it's something that they don't want to perpetuate. And so I think that's something that internally within CDN, we've spent a lot of time, particularly during COVID. So there's been a few distractions, but really thinking through, and we're very excited to be able to share some updates in the near future. Please tell your dog hi.
Don't encourage him. He's just trying to steal the spotlight. He's been doing it all night.
But we're very excited. We're going to be sharing some updates in the coming weeks around some of what our plans are to truly and meaningfully address inclusion and some of the systemic biases that are inherent in all of our lives today. So from that standpoint, I wish I could talk about it more right now, but it means too much to not do well. In terms of some of what I'm most excited about with CDN, because of the community and the work that every individual young adult has put into it, we have this national platform now. And so we have these 4 major impact areas that are able to go beyond just the communities on these campuses. So yes, it's the peer support, but it's then working together with our young adults to identify their needs and create the resources to address them. It's gathering their voices and identifying what needs to change, and then being able to bring those insights to the decision makers that can do that, whether that's industry or clinical care, campuses. And then it's also around advocacy. It's taking those insights and making sure the people that might not be paying attention start to pay attention. And so I think being able to take everything that is happening on the ground and create a larger impact with it, that's what the future of CDN is really all about. It's making sure that our core, our heart, is there and driving every priority and every focus area, but that we're ultimately having a much larger impact on young adults, but the diabetes community in general. There's just too much at stake for all of us not to focus on something more.
Well, I think I can speak for everybody that's here tonight, and also the chapter members who are no longer part of College Diabetes Network, that have left college probably against their will and moved on to, like I did, to life in the real world, or however you want to describe it, life after college, LAC. They can speak to the impact that CDN has had in their lives, and I know that they're translating that to overall change. And I think the things that you mentioned, whether it's systemic inclusion for people of color, or advocacy for people with diabetes, from a healthcare perspective, longer term, I think all of those people would say that College Diabetes Network has had an impact in their lives at large directly, as well as for the greater diabetes community. So I'm sure that there are a lot of comments coming in that we will answer. But I just wanted to thank you for the time, and for also just coming here to celebrate this I Love College event. Like, yeah, there you go. You've got the wine glass ready to go. Hopefully nobody was drinking every time I said I love college tonight, because I prefaced that this is not a drinking game. This is not the debates. We're past all of that. Yeah, anyway, I appreciate you having me here. For somebody who was in college and did not have a CDN chapter available when I was there, to know that it is there now, thriving, and it will be available for future people with diabetes, just makes me super encouraged, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Post-college life, whatever, I was not cool enough in college to be able to pull this off, so thank you so much for having me.
Oh, well, all the credit goes to everybody that came after me. So they've really done all of the hard work, and I just get to make a lot of mistakes and learn from them. But thank you so much for making tonight so much fun, and thanks for just making it a really special 10 years. And to everybody out there tonight watching, thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for making it so special. And I very happily raise a glass and drink to you.
Christina, and thank you so much for your time, everyone. As you can see, my co-host is now completely knocked out, which tells me that it's probably time to wrap up the show. So I did want to say a big thank you from me and from College Diabetes Network for you being here tonight. Your support is a critical piece to the continued success of the organization. So thank you for supporting CDN on this journey. Stay tuned for some exciting updates in the coming months. And I also wanted to give a big CDN shout out to Casey Creel, who is a former CDN chapter leader, and the work that she is doing with diversity in diabetes. Those connections that were made for diversity in diabetes started at an event like this one. So hopefully in the chat, in this event, in this sort of virtual disconnected Zoom world, there are similar connections being made that are going to impact the lives of people with diabetes. So for College Diabetes Network, I'm Rob Howell. Thank you so much for having me tonight and for supporting people with diabetes all over the world. So thank you all. And I would say get home safe, but you're likely already there home safe. So just give somebody you love a hug and enjoy whatever's left in your mug on I Love College night. See you guys later.